Refusal of some U.S. allies to back a U.S.-led limited strike option against Syria. For now, it appears that many Israeli officials are supporting President Obama's efforts to punish Syria for its use of chemical weapons. Yet there's growing concern that Syria or even Iran will retaliate against Israel for military action against Syria. Joining us now with more on the Israeli perspective, former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Dan Gillerman. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here today. Some people may be surprised that despite concerns that Israel could be targeted for retaliation, that the Israeli government supports President Obama's push to punish the Assad regime for using chemical weapons. If this is going to be a limited strike, why do you feel it will send a strong message to both Hezbollah and Iran?
Well, you know, this is a very, very tough neighborhood, and Israel has been facing dangers, including existential dangers, ever since it was born 65 years ago. We realize we live in a neighborhood which, at the end of the day, must realize that there are indeed red lines. Otherwise, this will become real hell. And we believe that nobody, including that totalitarian regime led by the butcher of Damascus, Bashar al-Assad, should be allowed to get away with using chemical weapons. It's the first time in the 21st century that anybody has used chemical weapons, and nobody has used them since the Second World War, except for Adolf Hitler and Saddam Hussein. So for the world to stand still and to allow this to happen would be a horrible, horrible mistake. This is not about Syria. This is not about Israel. This is about civilization as we know it. And I respect the President of the United States and salute him for taking the decision that this indeed is a red line that has been crossed, and that Syria must be made aware that it should never, ever contemplate using these weapons again against its own people or against its neighbors or anyone else.
I want to apologize to the viewers for just a moment. We do have a little bit of a delay in our Tel Aviv bureau there, but we will continue on with this interview. Now Israel has already pursued limited strikes against Syria. In fact, this year alone, Israel has waged military action against Syria 4 times, bombing convoys of advanced weapons that were bound for Hezbollah. What impact did those strikes have on your country?
Well, first of all, Uma, as you well know, Israel has never actually taken responsibility for those strikes in Syria. But what they did is indeed signal the Assad regime that Israel will not allow arms to be sent to Hezbollah and certain rockets with a certain range to be sent to Hezbollah, who are only proxies of Iran in the north of Israel and can threaten Israel. And I think the message was wide, loud and clear, and I think the Syrians have learned the lesson, which only proves that they do understand a clear message when it's delivered in the right way.
I know that you are personally frustrated with the way President Obama has been handling the Syrian crisis to this point by virtue of the politics surrounding this issue and the delays about making a decision. Can you understand why a majority of the American people are against any kind of military action against Syria at this time?
Well, I can certainly understand the trauma which the American people have suffered. They have barely recovered from the trauma of Vietnam, and they faced 2 traumas in Iraq and in Afghanistan, resulting in trillions of dollars and thousands of coffins being shipped home. I sympathize with the American people, and I feel what they're feeling. But at the same time, the president himself has said, this is the United States of America. This is the moral leader of the world, and this is a superpower, probably the only superpower today. Now, my frustration stems not from what the president is saying or the message he's trying to relay, but mostly from the delay. I think, you know, the problem is the president comes from the Midwest, and this is the Mideast. These are 2 different worlds. And when people in the Mideast see the hesitation and see the delay and then see the G20 meeting end with very little support for the United States, they ask themselves whether this is really serious. You know, this is very much a neighborhood of perception. The way things are perceived is sometimes more important than the way they are said. And what people are hearing and where they are hearing it is of the utmost importance. And I just fear that in Tehran and in Damascus and in Hezbollah and Hamas headquarters, they are looking at this facade, they are looking at this saga, and they're smelling weakness. And I think that this should not be the case. Even the whiff of weakness of a weak America, which I hope and believe it is not, is very, very dangerous in our region, especially as it's going up in flames everywhere, in Egypt, in Turkey, in Syria, in Libya, everywhere you look. And Iran is watching this very, very carefully. And those words are heard also in the corridors of power in Iran. And they're saying to themselves, if it's taking so long, if there's so little international support, if there's doubt about support actually in the United States and in Congress about chemical weapons being used in Damascus, what's going to happen when they turn to us and we actually produce nuclear weapons? And Iran should be made very, very aware that it could never become nuclear. And in a way, whatever happens in Syria will send the message to Iran, and I hope it's a loud and clear one.
Ambassador Gillerman, always great to see you. Thank you so much for your insights today. Appreciate it.